Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely incredible. We're going to explore Admiral William H. McRaven's legendary 10 lessons. These insights use the grueling reality of Navy SEAL training as a literal roadmap for overcoming, well, pretty much any struggle life throws at you. And look, whether you've ever spent a single day in uniform or not, you're going to find that these lessons are completely universal. They strip away your background, your status, all of that, and they get right down to the absolute core of how we handle adversity. So, let's start with a hook that might actually surprise you: making your bed. You see, every single morning in SEAL training, the instructors, who were all battle-hardened Vietnam veterans at the time, would inspect the trainees' beds. And we are talking about a totally mundane, simple task that had to be done to absolute perfection. The corners had to be perfectly square, the covers pulled incredibly tight, pillows perfectly centered, and an extra blanket folded neatly right at the foot. Now, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? A bunch of aspiring warriors obsessing over the square corners of a bed sheet. But the psychology behind it is actually brilliant. Making your bed perfectly every morning gives you this small sense of pride. It proves right out of the gate that you can do the little things right. It builds a foundation, encouraging you to knock out another task, and then another. Plus, if you happen to just have a miserable, awful day, you come home to a bed that you made. It gives you that little bit of encouragement that tomorrow is going to be better. And that brings us perfectly to phase 1. Building the foundation. It's all about small steps and strong teams. During training, the students are broken down into boat crews of 7, plus a coxswain to guide them. Their job? Get a small rubber boat through the freezing winter surf off San Diego, where the waves can plunge 8 to 10 feet high. Now, when you're fighting that kind of massive surf, you realize really fast that you just can't survive alone. Every single paddle stroke has to be completely 100% synchronized to the coxswain's count. Everyone literally has to exert equal effort. Because if they don't, the boat catches the wave wrong and gets unceremoniously dumped right back on the beach. You can't change the world alone. You absolutely have to find someone to help you paddle. Just to give you an idea of the stakes in this environment, consider this massive attrition rate. Out of the 150 men who started in McRaven's class, only 42 remained after just a few weeks of this difficult training. That left exactly 6 boat crews of 7 men each. The physical and mental toll is just astonishing. Now, this crazy attrition rate led to one of the most fascinating dynamics in the entire class. The absolute best of those remaining crews was known as the Munchkin crew. No one in this boat was over 5'5", and it was this remarkable mix: an American Indian, an African American, a Polish American, a Greek American, an Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. The bigger men in the other crews would constantly poke good-natured fun at the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny feet. But guess what? The Munchkins outpaddled, outran, and outswam everyone, reaching the shore long before the rest of the guys. It proved without a doubt that SEAL training is the great equalizer. Internal drive and willpower will always trump outward physical advantages. Nothing mattered to those instructors except your sheer will to succeed, not your background, not your education, and for sure, not your height. But hey, we have to pivot to a pretty difficult reality here. What do you do when you've done everything right, you've put in the maximum effort, and you still get punished? That takes us to phase 2, overcoming inevitable setbacks. This is what happens when preparation meets plain old unfairness. Enter the sugar cookie. So, several times a week, instructors conducted exceptionally thorough uniform inspections. Your hat had to be perfectly starched, your uniform immaculately pressed, your belt buckles shiny and totally free of smudges. But here's the catch. It was never going to be good enough. The instructors would purposefully find a flaw. And your punishment? You had to run fully clothed right into the surf zone, get soaking wet from head to toe, and then roll around on the beach until you were entirely covered in sand. You stayed cold, wet, and sandy for the rest of the day. Getting turned into a sugar cookie really wasn't about the uniform at all. It was a brutal lesson that sometimes, no matter how hard you prepare or how perfectly you perform, your best efforts are going to go unappreciated. You just have to accept that life isn't fair, get over being a sugar cookie, and keep moving forward. Similarly, you are going to face physical failures. In training, every event had a strict time standard. If you failed to meet it, your name went on a list for something called the circus. A circus meant 2 hours of extra calisthenics at the end of an already exhausting day. It was literally designed to wear you down, break your spirit, and force you to quit. Plus, it meant you'd be way more fatigued the next day, making more circuses highly likely. But there's a crazy paradox here. Everyone eventually fails and ends up on the circus list. Over time, those students who had to do the 2 hours of extra calisthenics actually got stronger and stronger. Enduring that painful extra physical punishment built immense inner strength and physical resiliency. And when dealing with life's obstacle courses, playing it safe just isn't going to break any records. Twice a week, trainees faced a brutal 25-obstacle course. The absolute most challenging part was the Slide for Life, which featured a 200-foot rope strung between a 3-story tower and a 1-story tower. For years, the speed record on this seemed completely unbeatable because students would safely swing underneath the rope and just slowly inch their way down. It wasn't until one student bravely risked going down headfirst, literally mounting the top of the rope and thrusting himself forward perilously fast, that the long-standing record was finally shattered in half the time. So, the crucial point here is to embrace your failures and be willing to take calculated risks. Learn from the extra pain those circuses bring. Life is going to test you to your very core, but you must never let the fear of a circus hold you back. Sometimes, you just have to tackle your obstacles headfirst.
Moving into Phase 3, surviving the darkest moments, facing fears and finding the keel.
During the land warfare phase, students are flown out to San Clemente Island, which happens to be a known breeding ground for great white sharks. They have to complete a really long night swim. Naturally, the instructors joyfully brief them on all the shark species in the water, but they do teach a critical survival tactic. If a great white shark circles your position, you absolutely cannot swim away. You cannot act afraid. You must stand your ground. And if that shark darts towards you, you summon every ounce of strength you have and punch him right in the snout. You have to face down the sharks and the bullies of the world with all your strength. But honestly, even more terrifying than the sharks is the ship attack mission. SEAL divers are dropped outside an enemy harbor and have to swim over 2 miles underwater using literally nothing but a depth gauge and a compass. As you approach the massive steel structure of the target ship, it blocks out the moonlight and any ambient street lamps from above. You have to swim under the ship and find the keel. That's the center line and the deepest part of the ship. It is pitch black down there. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. The noise from the ship's machinery is deafening, and it is incredibly easy to become disoriented and just completely fail the mission. Every SEAL knows that underneath that keel, in the absolute darkest, most disorienting moment of the mission, is exactly when you must remain the most calm. You have to be composed. All your tactical skills, your physical power, and your inner strength must be brought to bear exactly when it is the darkest. Which brings us right to the climax of this journey and the ultimate test of human willpower. When the pressure is completely unendurable, are you going to quit? Phase 4, the ultimate choice. 15 hours in the freezing mud. So, during the 9th week of training, known as Hell Week, trainees endure 6 full days of zero sleep and constant harassment. And there's one special day at the mud flats of the Tijuana Slows where they are literally buried up to their necks in freezing mud for 15 solid hours. On a Wednesday evening, with over 8 agonizing hours left until sunrise, the chattering teeth and shivering moans of the men were just deafening. The instructors came up and offered a deal. If just 5 men quit, everyone could get out of the oppressive cold. It really looked like some of them were about to give up. But just then, one out-of-tune but incredibly enthusiastic voice started singing. One voice became 2 and 2 became 3 until everyone in the entire class was singing. The instructors threatened them with even more time in the mud if they didn't stop, but the singing persisted. And somehow, because of that shared unity, the mud felt just a little bit warmer, the wind a little tamer, and the dawn didn't seem quite so far away. That single voice proved the immense power of one person to give hope. Think about Washington, Lincoln, King, Mandela, Malala. One person really can change the world just by giving people hope. In this case, that hope kept the men from walking over to a simple brass bell that hung right in the center of the training compound. You see, all a trainee ever had to do to permanently end their pain, no more freezing swims, no more 5 a.m. wake-ups, no more circuses, was walk up and ring that bell. It offered an immediate escape. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate choice we all face. No matter how painful the cold is, how exhausting the circus is, or how unfair the sugar cookie seems, you must never give up. You cannot choose temporary relief over your ultimate goal. Never, ever ring the bell. Let's quickly summarize these powerful sequential steps we've looked at today. If you build your foundation by completing a simple task and relying on a strong team, if you embrace the unfair setbacks and actually learn from your failures, if you step up and face your darkest moments and the biggest sharks head on, and if you give hope to the downtrodden, you absolutely will fundamentally change the generations to come. We've seen how surviving the freezing mud and facing down sharks prepares you for absolutely anything life can throw at you. But remember, the journey of 1,000 miles, the path to actually changing the world, literally starts right in your bedroom. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What small, perfect task are you going to choose to start with today?